Hey, welcome to Film Fanatics and our monthly old classic special. My name is Dan.
My name is Justin.
And I'm Joe.
And with back to school season upon us here, we decided to look at some high school movies for this month's old classic theme. And we've got four very different films that we're going to talk about. Justin brought us Mr. Holland's Opus. Joe had The Karate Kid, the original. No love for Jaden on that.
Yes, the Kung Fu Kid.
I still think that's more middle school, too, because he's really young. He's a lot younger than Machio, I think.
Is he even middle school? Might even be like elementary.
He's like 12 or 13,
yeah, he'll
right?
probably be middle school.
Yeah.
All right.
I brought Election, and the listener's choice from you guys was To Sir with Love. We threw one movie from each decade from the 40s on, or 50s on, I guess. And that was the one you guys picked the most, To Sir with Love. So we'll have all of that. But we started off with Justin's pick, and that was Mr. Holland's Opus.
Richard Dreyfuss plays the titular Glenn Holland, a young, at the time, up-and-coming music teacher, aspiring to have one truly lasting piece of music. Over the course of several decades, Holland's reputation grows within the school, as does his dedication to his students, while unfortunately taking a toll on his personal life, particularly within in regards to his deaf son. Olympia Dukakis and William H. Macy have supporting roles.
Oh, yeah. William Macy, right?
Yes.
W.H. Macy.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
W.H. Macy, yeah.
Still throws me, but no. So this one I kind of discovered just out of sheer coincidence when I was in high school. My folks threw it my way because I was in marching band at the time, and I just really thought it was an incredibly well acted movie, and sort of interesting perspective about the teaching profession as a whole. Now, I'm not going to deny, listeners and gentlemen, this does certainly fall into the stereotypical 90s sap that was sort of characterized the era, but I think Dreyfuss's performance compensates for the most part. I think he does a very good job showing how he grows as a person, explores his flaws, and I think it's one of the few movies I can think of in the 90s that didn't depict disabilities as either superpowers or just completely inept. Like, his son actually feels like a person, and the dynamic over the course of the story really does add to it, I think. I will say the running time does become a bit much at moments. There are certainly a few subplots I could definitely cut down on, but I think for the most part it's a pretty solid movie, save for a couple editing decisions. I'd probably leave this one with a B.
Okay. What about Forrest Gump? That was out about this time. I don't think he had superpowers, right? I mean, he met the president. That was nice of him.
He had the power.
He was good at ping pong.
Plot convenience.
I was going to say, lest we forget the moment where he magically gets better with his legs.
Yeah, he starts off with just running.
I guess that's true.
Forrest Gump kind of is sort of superpowered.
Yeah, right.
He's super crip.
He's not.
I don't like Forrest Gump, so I haven't seen it in a long time.
I thought you did like Forrest Gump.
I hate Forrest Gump. Literally, like, it's one of the most overrated movies there is.
Oh, I thought I was the only one.
Oh, you are far from.
You don't
the
like it
one,
either?
Sir.
I didn't remember stuff that didn't deserve Oscars at the beginning, and you guys people were like, "Oh man!"
Well,
Forrest
because
Gump.
that was the year of every good movie that was ever made.
Yeah,
and Forrest Gump won. Anyway, we're getting
That's
wildly
right
off
for
topic.
today.
But I just wondered what your thoughts were.
No,
because that was
good.
You said of the era. That was the only one that was big that I could really think of. I did not care for this movie very much. I think Dreyfuss is okay. I don't think he's a revelation, but I agree he plays well with the growing aspect and sort of maturing. I thought that the movie got the eras completely backwards and wrong, incredibly corny. The montages as exposition to each new era were...
Tell me the end didn't get your heart a little bit? His Opus, man? Come on.
It really didn't.
Really?
It really didn't.
Aw. I like that.
It might be too long. Maybe if he played the Opus 20 minutes earlier and there was something, I would have been a little more engaged.
Wow.
One thing that spoke to me as a person who has watched a lot of these movies. You got Your Dangerous Minds and Lean on Me and Freedom Writers, and there's a million of them.
Yeah. Teacher inspiration.
Teacher inspiration. The opening sort of issue he was having is, my kids, won't listen to me. Okay, I understand that's a problem for teachers, but I feel like in a world of, Half Nelson and, all these other movies where getting shot at the front of the school and, all these other things. Or, I don't know. The kids don't like me or don't listen to me.
To quote one
just sort of seemed a little bit weak.
Myself for another one of the, Joe's mentioned two movies. Go. 187, where I have to do it. Another classic movie like mentioned. But
I never saw 187, but you're right.
Once again, Sam Jackson, that movie has more of a problem than Mr. Holland because literally his students are trying to kill him.
I say
I understand it's different eras. Movies. I understand, and I understand it's different eras. Obviously, in the 60s, there wasn't as much, gun violence or, drug problems in schools or gangs or whatever.
What are you trying to say,
But to me, it just sort of was like, all right, it's fine. But the world has bigger problems than this, and I don't know. I didn't love it. It's a C- for me.
Jeez,
Joe,
a little harsh.
I thought it was all right.
Possibly,
I thought it was good. I mean, I liked some of the acting. I thought that the relationship between the teacher and the student was pretty cool. I liked.
He did try to feel up that one student though.
But one of the negatives is that
I agree with that. But
there are a lot of different relationships with the students, and you want to see them kind of not to use the phrase touch their lives in a variety of ways.
Seem to be doing.
But of course, because we're trying to cover so much of this guy's life, it feels like we often don't get enough time with a lot of these characters, and I guess that can make it a little jarring. And the son, subplot was good. But
I don't think they did enough with
it. But there should have been more with it, like a lot of things too. And
they were trying to save it for the final moments.
Yeah, but they could have done more. I think to make more of an impact.
I mean,
I feel like he's one of the most consistent things in the guy's life, though, because since we do go through the different eras, obviously the students are going to change. Mm-hmm. Really, the only constants are his wife and son. The principal is the same for most of the movie.
Fair enough.
Maybe for all the movie. I think those are the most consistent. I do think they should have spent more time with the son, because that was obviously.
I mean, my counter to that though is that was his big flaw was he didn't have enough time. He didn't spend enough time.
I get it. You're right.
Yeah. Anyway.
Let's steal your thunder there, Joe.
Yeah, no, it's fine. But yeah, I thought it was decent. Maybe a bit too long. The length definitely got to me. And yeah, I think the eras towards the end got a little mixed up. But most of the time, I thought it was pretty consistent. Just through the last 15 minutes or whatever. But otherwise, that was pretty good. I'd leave it with a B.
Okay.
It was decent. Just a little long, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you didn't like it that much, Dan. Seemed totally because you're a fan of. Dangerous Minds, and
I love Dangerous Minds
because of Coolio.
Coolio's
we need more Coolio.
Big part of it. I can't lie about that. But I don't know, and just show the movie's long enough already. Mm-hmm. Just show us what year it is. We don't need the music montage. And
that's fair.
Let's show
that would have been nice.
That would burning my bra. Okay, they're in the late '60s now. You know. And they did it. What's funny is they did that, but then they also, in probably about half of them, did a sign at the school, like a congratulations class of 82 or welcome class of 71,
but
so
they show things from 1985.
Yes, yes, that's one flaw, but just you don't need both. You don't need the montage to tell us what era we're in and then a sign telling us what year it is.
That's fair.
You thought Dreyfuss was good, though. I mean, I would say Dreyfuss holds it together, but I've certainly seen him do better.
Dreyfuss was good.
Yeah.
I would not say Dreyfuss was great.
Yeah, I agree. Justin, great for you.
Great.
I think he deserved his nomination.
Okay.
Wow, he got nominated for this.
Yeah, he did.
Oh. What year was it?
92 or 3. I can't remember.
A good question.
Before Forrest Gump, though.
Yes, definitely before.
Yeah.
Well, it was just good.
But after, what about Bob? Which Dreyfuss is fantastic in. So yeah, 92 and 93. I think.
Okay, all right. Well,
early 90s.
All right. I guess it was worth it.
I don't know what else was up.
A nomination,
Yeah. All right, well, Joe, let's get to your pick, The Karate Kid.
You guys know what this movie's about, right?
Yeah, about.
I mean, I'm fairly confident it's about a kid who does karate.
But it's
or kung fu.
Of course, the
depending on the version.
Pop culture sensation, 1984. It's directed by the guy that did Rocky, so classic underdog sports movie, martial arts drama. You've got this kid, Daniel DeRusso. That's Ralph Macchio. Is taken with his mom from New Jersey to California, and he's having some difficulty adjusting to the move. He misses his friends. He's, kind of your angry teenager, tries to make friends, has a crush on this girl who's Elizabeth Shue, which is understandable. And then he gets beaten up by some bullies, and then he meets Pat Morita, the legendary Mr. Miyagi, who decides to teach him not only about karate to defend himself and prepare for this upcoming tournament, but to help him kind of get some balance in his life. And that's the movie.
Yeah, pretty much.
And it's one of my favorites. I've always liked The Karate Kid. I've always found it a fun, inspirational movie. And it's funny how it's one of those movies that it's so very 80s, and it does have some camp elements to it, but there is some good drama here. I think there's some good acting. I was actually surprised to learn fairly recently that Pat Morita was nominated for it. Like, I didn't realize that people really were affected that much by his performance. And I definitely think it's good. I think I've always kind of got behind Ralph Macchio's character. I've always liked Crusoe, and I think that there's kind of a fun balance of some good life lessons and some memorable scenes, some quotable dialogue, and some campy villains. It's just an all-around good time with maybe a little more of a punch or kick to it than you might be expecting. So yeah, I mean, I've always really liked it. It's an A for me.
Okay, Justin.
The Karate Kid is an 80s movie. It's so 80s it's bordering on disgusting at times.
Wow.
It's one of those few that but it's one of those films about martial arts that's actually pretty good. It actually is hitting some of the main points home.
Though, Justin, you correct me if I'm wrong, I believe one of the controversies about this movie from martial artists is that it's not, like, the martial arts isn't done particularly well, even though the theory's correct.
I think the philosophy is good.
Yeah.
I think the application, it's sort of like Kill Bill. Like, the handling, questionable, what they're trying to do, not the worst thing in the world.
All right.
But getting back on track here, it's certainly campy at times, bordering on cartoonish, definitely, I would argue, especially with the villains who are
I am evil.
so vehemently evil, it's insane.
I know.
Dan loves going back to the theory where
I can't deny it.
The central villain of the teenager Johnny as his anti-hero is beyond generous.
But no, you have to. It's one of the reasons why this movie is just so quotable. Like, because you think about it, like if this is really happening, the bad guy's mentally imbalanced. Like, it's if you don't show up, it's open season on him, and what? You run a dojo in a mall.
You're not a dojo. You're a gang.
What's going on right now? Anyway, go on. Sorry,
but I think it also speaks a lot to the aspect of it. Like, some are using martial arts for personal growth and development. Some are using it for I want to hurt somebody, which is obviously not the right reasons. But I think Pat Morita does a very good job of respecting the application, the philosophy of it. I think the final move is completely and utterly ridiculous. But
crane technique, no defense.
Yes, which plenty of defense. But
I know, right?
At that point, you love them both so much. It's like, all right, if this is the final move, go crazy. And of course, the '80s montage song is great.
Gotta have at least one.
Yeah, of course. Wax On, Wax Off is equally memorable, and I think the themes are incredibly pertinent.
They're good, right? Good themes
and complement.
Yeah, good characters.
Complement the material, help what could have been just like fluffy feel good entertainment actually have some heft to it. Like, I remember hearing a couple times that they were actually trying to underplay one of Miyagi's big scenes, and they took a risk, and it completely and utterly paid off. As a whole, I think it certainly holds up to a degree, at least by 80 standards. I'd probably leave with an A-. All
right.
Well, I haven't seen this movie, other than when you showed it, for probably about 27 years or so.
Whoa.
It was maybe even longer. It was probably after the second one came out, we rented this on VHS, and that was the only time I'd seen it. But obviously the legend, precedes it. I mean, it's got, all these quotable lines, and it's a very memorable story in that way, and I get why they wanted to redo it, because like Justin said, the themes are certainly very prevalent even today. However, it's very dated in its 80s-ness, so let's remake it with, Jackie Chan and Jaden Smith, which I thought was fine. I know some people really hated it, but maybe that's because I don't have the attachment to the original that a lot of people did. But I really don't have anything bad to say about this movie, except that it's kind of 80s. I mean, honestly, Miyagi is so good as a teacher, that he is just it's great to see him. His relationship with Daniel is great. The villains are so hilariously corny and like we're gonna literally murder you if you don't show up to the thing. It's
kind of great.
The dojo guy's like, "Yup, that's what we're gonna do. All right."
Yeah.
It's just so good. The music is good. How 80s is an 80s movie, supposed to be in 2016, I don't know. I mean, we can go back and forth, on a lot of that stuff. You look at a movie like Back to the Future, is not that 80s because most of it doesn't take place in the 80s. Mm-hmm. But you look at a movie like The Goonies,
pretty 80s.
It's pretty 80s. Yeah. But does that make it, a worse movie because it's kind of dated? I think the original Karate Kid is something that you could show a 10 or 12-year-old now, and I think he or she would get the same impact from it that kids watching it when it first came out did.
Absolutely.
So, it's an A+ for me. I can't really think of anything bad to say about it.
Nice. See, I gave it an A because of the 80s stuff. Now you're making me think back.
It's very 80s. I mean, I'm not going to deny that.
A- is mostly like 80s plus martial arts portrayal, but
martial arts stuff, I guess could have been better stunt wise. But you're right, the philosophy is definitely there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great movie though.
Yeah, I mean, of the three of us, Justin, actually does martial arts, so I can appreciate that. Okay, maybe the handling of it isn't the way it should be in the real world. But it is an 80s movie. It is. Certain liberties, I think, can be forgiven. But that Miyagi.
Yeah, Miyagi's great.
Yeah.
Better or worse than Yoda, though? That's the real question. This has come up before.
I mean, both will give advice that's both poignant and completely and utterly useless. So.
Wait, tell me what you mean? No, really, I mean, it's
Okay, I'm going to say Miyagi.
Okay.
Because I think Miyagi teaches with love.
What?
I think he loves Daniel-san.
You think Yoda does not care about Luke?
I don't know if he doesn't care about him.
He's torturing him at one point.
But he's of the two, I think there's a lot of love between Miyagi and Daniel.
Is there too much love, though?
No, I don't think it's like I don't think it's creepy. I don't think it's, Holland's Opus and his female student. But,
whoa!
I think that for that reason, he would be better than Yoda.
All right.
What do you guys think? I've never heard the question before, so that was my answer on the fly.
Let me answer. I mean, before I answer, let me ask a question.
Okay.
Are we going movie by movie basis?
Well, I always think specifically the.
Or are we going cumulative?
You can give me both. I'm curious now.
Okay, if it's cumulative, I'm gonna say Yoda.
Okay.
Because Miyagi's advice gets worse and worse and worse. His advice is pretty bad.
Because he says love, he's like, what happens if I show up or if I don't? Well, then you won't have any problems anymore if they kill you. Whoa! He's not wrong.
He's not wrong. Okay,
he's not
telling
wrong,
him like it is.
Not really helpful.
Telling him like it is.
Wow.
And unless you forget, there's no tournament. This for real.
This for real. Thanks.
And so if it's just movie by movie, then you say Miyagi.
I would probably say Miyagi because his advice in the first movie is actually pretty sound.
Okay. Oh, and Dan, did you watch the beginning of Karate Kid 2?
You know what? I didn't.
Well, you should and get back to me sometime because that is kind of like
the canon.
It's the book. It's the book-ended conclusion because you get to see the villains don't get totally resolve the teacher and even the rival kid, his development. It's all completed in like 5 minutes.
Oh,
but it's good.
Okay,
it's good. So worth checking out.
Yoda or Miyagi?
Oh, Mr. Miyagi.
Okay.
I've always been.
Lots of love.
Totally. I know his advice is good. I think we can all learn from it. I really do.
All right. Very good. Well, my pick for the month was Election. Reese Witherspoon in this plays Tracy Flick, a go-getter know-it-all running for class president. Matthew Broderick plays Mr. McAllister, a put-upon teacher who wants to see anybody but Tracy in the top student council position. So he recruits injured football star Paul Metzler to run, played by Chris Klein, and a battle for president ensues. In addition to Mr. McAllister going through marital issues at the same time. Jessica Campbell co-stars as Paul's sister, total outcast and rebel, who also decides to run. Now, for a while when we started this podcast, it seemed every month was, what Payne movie are we running?
Pretty much, yeah.
This is Alexander Payne's, one of his first films. We had Nebraska as a new movie, and then we did About Schmidt and the A to Z, and then Joe brought Sideways to the
so many Payne movies,
and of course Descendants.
And I had Descendants as, I believe, a new classic.
Yeah,
so pretty much one of each category.
We all like Payne.
We do, and I thought this would be a great movie to show. First of all, I knew Joe had not seen it, and as a Payne fan, gotta see it. But also, I thought it was sort of fitting for the election season here. This is the first Payne movie I ever saw. It was his second movie. I still actually never saw that first one. There's this razor sharp wit to it. The satire is great. It pulled me right in. I've seen this, I don't know how many times, probably 10 or 12. The movie pulls no punches. And on the heels of Pleasantville, this one cemented that Reese Witherspoon, was my favorite actress. And that held for a long, long time. I think she's absolutely great here. Her, back and forth with Mr. McAllister is great. She has a minor subplot towards the beginning with one of Mr. McAllister's teacher's friends that she was, having an affair with. And, that whole thing was great. And especially her and Paul Metzler going back and forth. It just, I think, really is one of the first movies to really capture high school life in a comedic way, but also a very real way, I would say, since movies like The Breakfast Club and stuff like that. We've seen a few since. I think Mean Girls did it very well. Certainly Perks of Being a Wallflower did it very well. But I think this one really captures a lot of what it feels like to be a high school student. And yes, the kids are caricatures. They're sort of, the unpopular know-it-all, the football star, the social outcast, hippie, burnout, whatever you want to call her. And they're all sort of represented. And, of course, there's a lot that aren't represented here that sort of represent, like, the people voting and the students helping Mr. McAllister, count the votes. I just think this is a brilliant movie, and the directing choices are great by Payne. It's an A+ for me. Joe?
You want to hear what I think
First
about
time.
I was going to say.
It's like,
I would like to hear.
It's the worst movie I've ever seen.
I know that's not true.
No, I think that I always like movies where they show things from different perspectives, and you kind of have like one assessment of somebody based on one side of the story or one scene, and you kind of learn more and more as it goes along. And I do agree that there are caricatures. I don't know if I would necessarily say that this shows how it feels to be a high school student individually for these characters and getting to know them. I've definitely seen movies do that better. But this movie is very good at showing how high school feels.
Yeah.
That I can agree with.
And that's hard to explain and pin down. But if you were just like kind of looking at the superfluous layers of everybody and kind of just putting labels on things and people's reaction to things, I feel like I was there. Those assemblies feel like they're there, and they tap into the kind of the consensus that everybody feels, I think, with that teen angst. And I really like the characters a lot, and I like the dialogue. It's really witty, and it's dark comedy. And
pitch black dark. But
it's sometimes funny, but a lot of times it's really intense, and it's interesting how it builds. And I gotta say, Ferris Bueller, comes back again, and as the teacher this time. And I have to say, this is like one of my favorite performances by his.
Mine too.
It might be my favorite. I was just like, wow, it's just a really complicated story, and it's really fun to watch and engaging. I would totally watch it again. I was blown away that I feel like it's very different from a lot of Payne's other movies, but it's still very good.
Yeah.
So it showcases that he can do a lot of different stories, and with each movie being as different as it is, it's amazing.
But each of his movies has at its center a journey of some kind.
People go through a journey.
And here I think it's maybe a little bit more concise.
Yeah.
Because it is over the course of a couple of weeks, maybe.
Yeah.
But there's certainly, I think, for almost every character, a journey.
No, yeah, it was great. I'm really glad he showed it to me finally after years of hyping it up.
Yeah, true.
So I leave with an A+. I thought it was fantastic.
All right.
Okay.
I thought it was brilliant, honestly.
Very good.
Okay.
Justin?
Justine's like D+.
All right, so yes, no, this is Girl on the Train 2, guys.
No.
No. Come on, folks, I'm not that mean.
Just kidding.
But no, this is the Alexander Payne movie that, honestly, in reference to his later stuff, doesn't really feel like an Alexander Payne movie.
Definitely
But
not.
yet still has a lot of his isms, which I certainly do appreciate.
And I think it's interesting to note it's an MTV film.
It is?
Well, it's from the studio. It didn't premiere on MTV, but, from the studio that brought you, Dead Man on Campus and
Jackass
and
Wonderful.
all those kind of movies.
Yes.
So that may be why it doesn't feel necessarily like a pain movie.
That could be. That could certainly be. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. One thing I really did appreciate this one is I love the political satire. I think it's really one of its strongest aspects. And I think a lot of the stuff it's trying to say is still very topical today. The problem with that is, while I agree with you, Joe, it feels like high school. I don't think it does a very good job depicting what high school was like. Now, granted, Dan, I can't speak to the fact of what high school was necessarily like in the mid to late 90s.
Yeah, true. This came out about 3 years after I graduated, so...
But for me, this was... I think the caricatures and the so much focus on satire kind of pulled back on it. Like, honestly, in high school, I never remember elections ever being this intense.
Well, I think that's a joke.
Yeah.
Like for me, it wasn't either, but
Yeah.
I think you're right. It's more of the political satire is what they're going for.
Yeah, and I mean, it works on that front as in terms of high school portrayal. Like, I think the characters themselves work. I think the setting, it's not quite as well there. I'd say the last two movies I think that really nailed it that I can think of were, as you mentioned, Mean Girls, and the other one you mentioned, Perks of Being a Wallflower.
I mean, they're two of the greats.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Absolutely, no question. But, I mean, the performances are solid. The fact that everyone's, to varying degrees, kind of unlikable. And the one thing that I think really frustrated me is I think it has way too many narrators.
I kind of like that, though. And, Joe mentioned that you kind of see it from many people's perspectives.
Well, all right. I would partially agree with that,
Yeah,
Justin.
there's
Like,
four at least.
four narrators.
Yeah.
Like, I thought a lot of them were unlikable, like, at the beginning. And admittedly, they kind of go along. You kind of have, like, a perception of a person a certain way. Like, okay, he's the good guy, but he's done this thing.
Yeah.
This person's the bad guy, but, they're not quite as bad as you might think because they got this going on.
Yeah.
So I think it shows people are complicated, not necessarily unlikable.
That's fair. I mean, I would still say there are at least one, maybe two perspectives we didn't necessarily need. But
Maybe not.
I don't know. I think it's good to get a, kind of round robin style of the main characters.
Kept it
but it's
interesting
incredibly inconsistent with it, though. Like, we get Broderick's, we get Witherspoon's. Klein's is like 20% of the time.
Sort of in order of importance. I mean, do we really need to hear that much from Tammy Metzler? No. 3 or so voiceovers probably does it.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Then they make her a narrator, and I think she's honestly one of the most interesting characters in the entire movie. And then her character sort of falls off the. Her
arc ends pretty quickly.
I was gonna say, ends quickly / gets benched.
Funny lines.
It's certainly a lot of fun to watch. Always welcome to come back to it. Is it the greatest high school movie ever? Not quite. I'd probably leave it with a very solid A-.
Okay.
I think it's up there.
I think it's pretty great.
Yeah.
Not as good as Donnie Darko, though.
Oh, man.
Thank God you didn't bring that piece of garbage.
That happened.
Karate Kid was a
Speaking
much
of wildly
better watch
overrated movies.
than Donnie Darko. All right. Well, finally, like I said, we put up the different one movie for each decade for you guys to vote on, the listeners, and it was To Sir with Love, which was our 60s pick, and Justin's going to tell us about that.
Sidney Poitier plays Mark Thackeray, a black unemployed engineer accepting work at an East End school with students completely devoid of discipline. After realizing the material being covered isn't quite resonating with the students, Thackeray institutes a new curriculum that caters to their learning desires, all while demanding mutual respect amongst the class as a whole. Judy Geeson and Christian Roberts have supporting roles. Now, in reference to where we started tonight with Mr. Holland's Opus, there's many an inspirational teacher movie, but what I think is what makes this a sort of cut above the rest is that it's a really, not only is it an inspirational teacher movie, but it's a really interesting cross-cultural inspirational teacher movie. We have Poitier really on his A game here, but we also have Poitier in British culture and how that sort of comes into play. What does it mean to be a part of that? Which I don't think is something we really think about when we come to the high school setting.
Culture shock and...
absolutely, among many other things. But Poitier, as to be expected, commands with a vengeance, as if he wouldn't. He is
one of the greats.
He is truly one of the greats. I wish I could say I've seen more of his material, but alas, I have not. My big issue with this movie is I don't even remotely buy his teaching style.
Not for this era.
No, like, you're going to completely turn an entirely different direction, and the school district is fine with that. Admittedly, I'm not the world's savviest person when it comes to the British educational system, but
but especially in the 60s. I mean, you have to
especially
imagine.
with the race issue, too.
Yeah, you have to imagine that was a little bit out there.
Yeah. I mean, I like some of the things he did within that, but just the sheer, like, okay, no, we're throwing all this to the wayside. No way that would have happened. One aspect I really did appreciate was that it wasn't necessarily, oh, yes, you're all capable of going to bigger and better things. No, he explores the aspect of you're going to be in the outside world a lot sooner rather than later. So what does that exactly entail? What does it mean to give someone respect? And what does it mean to be a decent human being and demonstrate humility rather than, oh, yes, let me empower you and bring you up to higher levels because I think you can. It's a lot more about what does it mean to be a human being, which I very much did appreciate. And sometimes it's admitting you're wrong when you don't want to admit you're wrong, which I think leads to a lot of really interesting beats. And we find out the characters are significantly more complex and detailed than we might have originally given them credit for as a result. I will admit caricatures are at large here, particularly with the class, but I think a lot of the themes, when they want to work, absolutely hit home. Does the ending kind of take it a little bit, and I've taken in a bit of a goofy angle? Yes, but in a movie that's been kind of intense the entire time, it's not the worst change of pace. I think it's definitely one of the better inspirational teacher movies for a lot of different reasons. Poitier is fantastic. It's an A- for me.
All right. Yeah, I mean, Poitier is great. There's no, getting around that. One thing I think is interesting, and you sort of touched on this, Justin, is that even today, I see, kids saying, I wish they would teach us, how to balance a checkbook and how to change my oil instead of nonsense science that I'm never going to need,
exactly.
in such and such profession I'm going to have. And that's kind of what he does do. I mean, he sort of teaches them life skills, maybe not those, specifically, but here's what to expect when you get in the real world. Here's how to address people. Here's how to talk and act and be human beings in the world. This is from a school that these kids were the outcasts, the Dangerous Minds kids.
They were.
Justin, someday you'll see it.
But I'd like to see a 60s cover of Gangster's Paradise, though.
I would like that. Yeah. And they didn't even want to take them on a field trip. The horrors, they're going to, make a mess of everything and murder people, whatever they're going to do, steal things.
Jeez.
Those hooligans.
And he shapes them up and says, no, trust me, we're going to do this. Did they necessarily get a great education from him?
Debatable.
Book smarts? I don't know.
Street smarts,
but street smarts? Yeah, for sure. And I think that's very cool. I agree, Justin. I don't know if that would have happened necessarily that way in the 1960s, but okay. The dance sequence at the end of the movie is awful and unnecessary, and they repeat the same song 4 times.
That they do.
I understand the singer isn't in the cast and whatever, they want to highlight the new hit or whatever, but
there's no Alfie.
Alfie just played once over the credits, okay?
There is no escape.
And the one version was Cher, so that's fine. But this was just a little much. A soundtrack might want to have multiple songs.
Not just one.
I would say not just one, yes.
2.
Yeah, I mean, if it's Power of Love and Back in Time, and those are your 2 songs,
all right,
fine.
Go for it.
All right.
Not to bring up Back to the Future again, but yeah, it was a little much. It was a very good movie. I think it holds up pretty well 50 years after the fact. Mm-hmm. So I will also give it an A-. Joe?
Well, I'll say that I like the idea of teaching kids how to conduct themselves as people.
Yeah.
Is probably very important and some kind of moral standard straightening out these kids, especially them when maybe book smarts at this point in their educational careers might be tough to cram in anyway. it's ultimately more important, and I think that is something that even more modern schools maybe should try to attempt to do, as opposed to the things that they do. But definitely complicated for sure. I kind of wish that even for a '60s movie, I kind of wish they had addressed the racial stuff a little bit. Like, it is there, and I understand that it couldn't have.
It's there a little bit.
It is, and I mean, I know that for what it is, it probably couldn't have had too much, but I feel like it would have been interesting to see it come back a bit more, because they do address it, and like, oh, okay, so we're just going to kind of not talk about that, even though that's kind of pertinent to how people conduct themselves. But, I thought that the acting was pretty good. Poitiers looked great as well. The dance scene was fine, but it went on too long.
It definitely went on too long.
Yeah,
I'll
it just wasn't needed.
Like, I mean, no, it's
they're like showing, okay, there's the mutual respect now.
And there's the party to celebrate. It's the graduation. I get it.
I get it.
I didn't like it, but I get it.
Yeah, I don't like it either.
But you guys, I'm so glad you did not mention my biggest problem with this movie.
Ooh,
my pet peeve.
Don't.
Could you guys guess what it is?
I guess not, because we didn't say it.
I was like, oh, then one of them was going to say it. Oh, they didn't. Well, all right, you've got high school students who are all 35. Every single one of them.
This is one of the worst
and
ages
literally, there's like an actress who is like a possible romantic interest for Poitier, who's the same age, possibly younger.
She's got to be 40 if she's a day.
Than the students. And I'm just like, this is taking me out of the movie so much. Like,
I did forget about that.
They're good actors, and I mean, they look good and everything, but I'm like, really, this is like one of the worst.
The main ruffian, I'd say, was the worst.
I'm like, dude, you really got held back a long time. And I'm sorry. I know.
What did you do to these kids? My gosh.
And I will say it again. I'll be a broken
record.
That
is true. I forgot about that part.
That is one of my biggest pet peeves. And like, they were good. I like the characters. I did. But God, that casting was just too distracting. Okay, one or two students have to act. I get it. But some of the background people, at least.
Right. It's the only movie of the entire show where the kids were not kids.
That's true.
I mean, within a couple of years, Justin. I don't mean they're all 15-year-olds, but I mean
that's fair.
Maybe 20 or
the most
under.
Radical, yes.
I mean, like, these guys are 30 or more.
Ooh, like they are clearly full.
Even Holland's Opus, you had Terrence Howard.
Yeah,
at least
DeWitt
was
very young, and you
had some good, young actors there. But for this one, that's the worst issue I have with it, as a nitpick, but a big nitpick.
No, that's fair.
But really, other than that, though, I thought it was a good movie. I was glad I saw it. I'm actually with you guys at the A-.
Oh, okay.
But I had to mention it.
Yeah, you're right. I'm glad you did, because I forgot.
I mean, I'm willing to forgive that to a degree.
I'm not.
These kids were old.
They will be retired, Justin.
There's suspension of disbelief. I mean,
they're collecting checks.
Dan, you watch Friday Night Lights. You know this is about as well as I do. But.
I think TV is a little worse than movies because...
Pay?
Not pay, but because there's so many episodes... They need the kids to work for years on it. 90210 is the biggest. The original 90210 is the biggest offender of that.
50 by the end.
I mean, literally, Gabrielle Carteris, when that show started, was in her mid-30s.
Oh no!
Yeah, she's the president of SAG now, by the way, and she was apparently in high school in 90210 20 years ago.
Jeez.
So. Come on.
No, fair enough.
Most of the time, I think in movies, it's a little bit better than this. The only other one I can think of that's super, super this bad is Grease.
That's up there.
That's probably the other one where everyone's in their late 20s or older.
Grease is up there, definitely.
All right, well that is our show for the month. Our next old classic theme is Halloween/horror month. So there'll be another Facebook poll. You can check that out if you're already on our Facebook. Great. If not, that is Film Fanatics with an exclamation point. You can vote there with your favorite of the horror movies we put up for you. And thanks so much for listening. We'll see you back here next time.